Companies make money, individuals get taxed, right? So I don't want the money to come to me. I want as little as possible as a W-2 to come to me, and I want the companies to make all the money because you activate the tax code.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larsen. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, I'm excited to have Loral Langemeier. Loral is a global wealth expert, a 6-time New York Times bestselling author, and the CEO of Integrated Wealth Systems and several other alternative asset companies. Since 1996, Loral has been involved in multiple areas of finance, mentoring, real estate investment, business acquisition and development, and gas and oil. In 2001, she established Live Out Loud, Inc., a wealth coaching, mentoring, and consulting company, which my wife and I have been a part of, and grew that into an international multi-million-dollar company in only 5 years. In 2018, she created Integrated Wealth Systems, teaching people her strategies on how to make money, invest money, and keep money, which we love here at Next Level Income. Loral is known as the Millionaire Maker, and she has to date helped over 10,000 clients hit 7-figure revenue. Loral has appeared in Forbes, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, Business Week, The View, Dr. Phil, ABC, CNN, CNBC, and Fox News Channel, and joins us today on the Next Level Income Show to share her mission to change the conversation about money. She's also the host of Real Money Talks, her podcast talking all aspects of wealth building across all her social channels, and has over several million followers. Loral, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be back. All right.
Oh,
Chris.
yeah. This is so exciting. As we were talking before we started recording, my wife and I had the pleasure of attending one of your events at the end of 2012. And it was transformational. It really was. You say this on your website. We've got the link there for the audience. But, my wife and I went through this period, and we're going to talk about your framework and how you help clients do this. But, I was making, good 6 figures in the medical device industry, but my wife was working as an architect, and we added it up that year. And what we found was, after paying taxes, after paying for daycare, my wife, it cost us $11,000 for her to go to work. So that event kicked off my investment in the multifamily space, which led to our business. And my wife, after that event, went out and started her architecture degree. So I'm so excited that you can share some of the same things we learned today on the podcast, Loral.
Well, I'm glad. I'm super glad that worked out for you guys, and you're still and you're still not only in it, I mean, you're excelling in it. So what we're going to talk about in living corporate life will be, I think, advantageous not only for you and your wife, but all of the listeners.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. We were talking before the show, people that are high income earners, they hear corporate life, even entrepreneurs, they're like, well, I don't want to be part of the corporate space. But, a lot of the things that you teach, that Robert Kiyosaki teaches, are the things that have helped us not just make more money, but keep more money and ultimately grow that money. But Laura, before we jump into that, do you mind sharing a little bit about your story and your background?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a farm in Nebraska, a big farm family. And I say that because my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad was a farmer. I mean, my mom was obviously very involved in the farm. And then later, probably right before I kicked off college, she, which was in the early 80s. Now, know how old I am. The interest rates were crazy. And to supplement the farm income, she started catering, mostly weddings. And so I grew up with entrepreneurs, but we weren't ever taught that. And I think a lot of people, even, your higher accredited audience out there, they don't really talk about what they do, right? They just do it, or they're being it. But I wasn't raised in a family, I think like most Midwestern farm families, of we're entrepreneurs and we have companies and trusts and all the things. I mean, I never heard the word asset until I was 17, and I went off to college. I played basketball for my first few years and got a book out of one of those initial leadership seminars from Dennis Waitley called Think and Grow Rich. And that changed everything at 17. And what's fun is I have both my kids at 17, the original books, actually from Bob Proctor, the original leather bound Napoleon Hill books.
Wow.
Yeah, the original gold plated, the whole thing. So I just get one for myself. I got one, for each of my kids. That's 17. because it changes you. It changes your
It
perspective.
does.
You are in a very different conversation about mastermind, living your burning desire, just, I mean, creating the purpose and passion. It was just such like, oh my gosh, like, how does this happen? This is a whole new world. So to my degree, I was going to go be a lawyer, which I still would be kind of a fun, I'd love a courtroom law case. I think I'd
I
love
can
to
see you
bench with
doing
my,
that. I can see you doing that.
I'd be kind of
I
rough with
would,
the
I don't
judge.
know if I'd want to go toe to toe with you.
You wouldn't want to go toe to toe because I'd win. Um, you're like, I'm not even there, and I'm just like that. I just know that jam because I've had to hire a lot of them in my lifetime. But I
Hmm.
got a business degree and then got a job for about a minute in an investment banking firm and went on to get a master's degree in exercise physiology, which was my love.
Oh, wow.
And building fitness centers on offshore oil rigs. At 24, I was making an enormous amount of money on a contract with Chevron to build 272 fitness centers on offshore oil rigs. I moved to New Orleans, flew offshore in helicopters and seaplanes and had that life for a while. Early, like during college, like into college, I paid Proctor 25,000. And I'm like, what? And I said,
Huge
I'm a
amount back
college
then. Yeah.
kid. And he said, you'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I have the same attitude with all my clients. You'll figure it out. You want it, you'll figure it out. So I did. I figured it out over and over and over because it was 25,000 a year to work with Bob.
Wow. Yeah.
And then fast forward, did that, career. It was a big, big chapter. 1996, I was like, Bob, I got to get out of here. Like, I'm now having to be an employee. I was at corporate office in San Francisco, travel all over the world with them. So, I mean, it was a cool experience, learning corporate training and corporate management and blah, blah, blah. But I really needed the freedom of being an entrepreneur. And I never stopped like doing extra things. I always had a company on the side. So I always had an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp. I always had that, even being an employee. And that's a huge lesson for what's coming with the framework of how I teach, because that's what kept my taxes really low. So I never
Yeah.
realized how much I could have overpaid in taxes if I was just an employee. So Bob said in 1996, he said, well, I think I have a transition. There's this guy, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. You're going to fly to Sharon Lecter's house. You're sit at the kitchen table. And he said, make a deal. They're going to focus on the book. You focus on the game. So I left the master distributor, the Cashflow game. So now I'm a straddled personality. I share that because a lot of people listening, as you
Yeah.
straddle out of your life to do a new life, like I'm an exercise physiologist for Chevron working in, the safety and human resources and ergonomics department. And now I have this entrepreneurial venture of a game following a Japanese guy in a game around. So it was a funny transition. It took a minute to get there, but I literally just did it. I walked back to Chevron the next day. I flew home from Scottsdale and I quit. And they're like, you can't
Wow.
quit. And I said, I can quit. And I'm walking out that door. And
Mm.
that's what they were the ones teasing me. They said, you make hundreds of thousands of dollars as an employee and you're executive. I said, I have golden handcuffs and I want them. I want to be free. I want to be wealthy and I want to teach money, wealth, not health anymore. So that
Yeah.
was an interesting transition, 1996. Fast forward, became a single mom in 1999 and hit two millionaire statuses, one in real estate later that year in gas and oil, because of Chevron. And a bunch of us all, we all left Chevron around that time in those
Yeah.
era. So that's what got me into those two. And then I just started doing real estate tours. By 2001, I started the Big Table. So
Yep.
the Big Table is my mastermind and mentoring, the longest standing in the world. It's our 25th anniversary this whole year. It's been fabulous. It's been fun. We've had really big, fun shows. We only do two a year, one in April and one October. And as we head into our 26th year, I believe I've been doing.
Wow.
I know.
Well, we've only been with you half that time. We've been 13 years as
Oh,
part of the big table, but wow, 26 years. That's an incredible run.
yeah, it's been a fun run with the same, same name, always the Big Table. We made a little transition. It was Loral's Big Table for a while, and it's like, no, I got to get off that brand and get it to the Big Table. But anyway, that's been fun, and we teach people how to live corporate life.
Yeah.
And it's me and a whole bunch of experts that I've surrounded myself with, and we integrate your wealth plan. Just so definitively different because the financial space, as you know, Chris, is extremely segregated. You could have a CPA here, a tax, or a CPA. You could have maybe a corporate structure. Most people get their companies either through their CPA or their lawyer, or they go to the Secretary of State.
Hmm.
They don't know how to run them. They don't know their corporate compliance. They may get trust. They may get life insurance. They may self-direct their IRA, but nobody teaches them how to put that together into a
Yes.
master plan. And that's what I do differently is we integrate all these experts. So they're not your experts because they got tired of training your experts. They're our experts that are trained in our way to create millionaires in 3 to 5 years.
I
So
love it. I
That's
love it.
that's the story. I'm sticking to it because it's the truth. How it
Well,
all
it's an amazing story. It's an in-depth story. But what I love about you, Laurel, is you've actually lived what you teach. You've
happened.
gone from an employee. I love how you phrase that. You talk about straddling out of what you're doing.
Yep.
And I was you caught me nodding when you were talking about leaving that job because I was one of the top performers in the company when I left.
Yeah.
And my friend goes, he's like, "You're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year." He looked at me, he goes, "Chris, do you hate money? Like, why are you leaving?" And I said the same thing. I said, "No, Brian, I want freedom. I want freedom
Uh,
from my family." And yeah, it's allowed
yeah.
me to do this, but it was as you teach and as Robert Kiyosaki teaches, it's like live like an investor that all ultimately taught me how to do that.
100%. Oh, it's so
Um,
critical.
and you said something else, Laura, that is really that we're going to dive into here is the main part of the show today, which is, there's all these segregated advisors out there. You got your attorney, you have your financial advisor, maybe you have your self-directed IRA, you have money invested in alternative assets like oil and gas or real estate. But it's unless you're a family office, you don't have a team that's doing all these things for you. And this is part of your framework, which you talk about in living a corporate life. Can you talk about what that framework is?
Yep.
Because you taught my wife and I this. You said the optimal structure is to have a W-2 employee, but also have your corporation, and then you're going to be able to optimize your income.
Yep. Yeah. And so the probably easiest saying that I've come up with is companies make money, meaning the ones you own. And in America, they are called LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, or limited liability partnerships. And those companies held in trust is your framework for a legacy. So, and you say, well, who decides whether you should be an S Corp, a C Corp, an LLC? Your tax. And I always say tax strategists because there's a lot of CPAs who are historians. And
Hmm.
historians are people who you're going to hand them your stuff and they're going to document your history and say, here, Chris, this is what you owe in taxes. There's no strategy, there's no plan. Versus the way I teach it is, companies make money, individuals get taxed. Right. So I don't want the money to come to me. I want as
Right.
little as possible as a W-2 to come to me. And I want the companies to make all the money because you activate the tax code. So then our tax strategists look at that strategy and say, how do you best use them? They put the plan, but then there's no behavioral. So where I come in is most of my work is the behavior of how do you live that corporate life? So just say that you have a C Corp as a management company, an S operational, and an LLC for some real estate investing, right? You end up with three, and then maybe you're an employee of one of your companies, or you actually still have a job. But living corporate life is as much as you can. You're going to move money through these companies, not you. Now, if you are a high W-2 employee, and I got another 1.2 million, and they're in pharmaceutical sales. I mean, it's a high paid, ticket, but that is an amazing tax problem for them. So they
Yeah.
need more than three. They're going to need 4 or 5 companies. And you don't put your W-2 money over here. This is
Right.
new money, new income, new operating companies, and a reason to make money. Like your wife, I mean, being an architect as an employee is one thing, but being an architect in your own company is very different because then you activate the greatest tax code in the world. And even under the last administration, it was about 81,000 pages with the big, beautiful bill, now law. It's build in by 26 to about 83,000 pages again. So when your
Wow.
companies make money, and America is the only place in the world because I've had companies all over the world. I've taught this corporate structure and this way of living corporate life. Because a lot of people say, well, I joined your program. I said, the big table around the time I met you in 2012
Yeah.
became a lifetime membership. It's a one-time deal. It's a one-time membership, one fee,
Yeah.
and it's for you and your family for a lifetime. So over that journey, right, your company need to make the money. Your kids need to work for the companies, and we can talk about that kind of coming next, which is how I
I
made my
can't
kids.
wait. Yes.
Because on day one, I mean, they came out, and day one they were employed. By day 1.5, two, they had a Roth IRA.
Yep.
And if you load up a Roth, and this is just a little parent tip, if you load kids Roth completely funded year after year for 20 years, invested properly, let's just say an average of 12%, you will make them a millionaire in that one move. If that's all you did, and you
Yeah.
actually oversee that properly, you could make them a millionaire. So it's not like that sophisticated,
Yeah.
but most people don't do it. And people
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I don't have kids." I said, "Well, you should get them. They're tax deductible. They're fabulous."
You can adopt them, you can have
And
them.
he,
There's so many ways to get kids
however
these
you want to
days.
get them, but little tax deductions for you.
Yeah.
So the premise of corporate life is your companies make money, you activate the greatest tax code. And I was going to say most countries around the world, because I'm sure you have listeners from countries,
We
they
do.
have what's called either GST or VAT. There's some sort of a tax on that money
Right.
before you get the deductions. America is the only place in the world you make it, deduct it, then pay tax. And that can offset, especially when you have depreciated, like the bonus depreciation for real estate.
Yeah.
Gas and oil is fabulous this year. Aviation, there's so many ways that if you invest alternatively, it'll counter those big W-2s. For you, if you
Yeah.
are a W-2 for yourself, then pay
Yeah.
as little as possible, because W-2 income is the worst quality money. You want the
Yeah.
high quality money going into your companies. The lowest quality money is it goes to your personal bank account because you're not deductible. Like this little thing is not, I don't own a phone. This is my funniest saying, Chris. I don't know if you've heard me say this because I just kind of made this up in last
Yeah.
post-COVID. Like I don't own a phone. I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I don't own a lot of jewelry or wardrobe because I just do, I'm kind of a ski bum and in my private time and hike and play. And so those clothes aren't deductible, but the wardrobe you see me wear, my cowboy boots, jeans, leather jackets, jewelry, all that's wardrobe. And
Love it.
so when you play corporate life to the magnitude of 80 something thousand pages, it's a cool creative strategy.
Yeah.
And then the goal is to reduce your taxes as much as
Hmm.
possible. Pay legally, but as much as have it be a strategy. I call it forecast forward. Like when you come into
Forecast forward.
2026, yeah, that's another word
And
I
I, well,
made.
I love what you said. You said most CPAs are historians. I've never heard it put that way. It's such a great way to say it. And it's like, well, you I guess you could rewrite history, but you really can't. History is history. But when you strategize going forward and say, wait, how am I going to earn this money? What what is my corporation going to purchase? My phone, my car. We've
Yep.
employed all these things. Our kids started working for us during COVID, shipping my copies of my book out. And
For
and
you.
yeah, and you get to pay them. They clean our Airbnbs, they wash our corporate vehicles. My son worked at our car wash this summer, and they both have Roth IRAs because of that. And it's a phenomenal way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. And it's really a lifestyle. So many people say, "Oh, I'm in your program." I said, "I don't have a program. I have a lifestyle." Because eventually I shouldn't say I'm not necessary because I teach the behavior of how to
Yeah,
glue it together as a way to think about it. Like, people will get the strategy and their forecasts, but that even them, and yes, they're CPAs, they're not going to sit with you behavioral and say, "These are how you live with your credit card, your corporate credit. Here's how you behave with your children." There's
right.
no behavioral teacher in there. So that's where I just self-nominated this new role for myself in gluing it together. How do you
Yeah.
life insurance? So those are the kind of calls and texts I get my clients now because it is a lifestyle. Once they get it, they don't bother me. People say, "Oh, I can't believe you give thousands of people your phone." It's like, first of all, they probably aren't going to call me a lot. And when they do, they need help. And I can help them very quickly and I can help them navigate very quickly. Like I had a client call a couple weeks ago. "I'm in Disneyland. I forgot to call you. How do I write this off as a business trip?" So very quickly, I'm like, "Who did I assign you for tax?" And we very quickly get on a call and we, give them all sorts of things that they have to do and the
Yeah.
pictures they have to take and the real estate they're
Yeah.
going to go look at and all
Yeah.
the things they have to do to
Yeah.
make it a legal business trip. I love doing that stuff. I think it's
Yeah.
fun because it's so creative.
It is fun. I love it. And it's a game. And I think a lot of people, they hear 83,000 pages and they're scared. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to get involved in that. My CPA says avoid this. They don't want any calls from the IRS or questions." And I think when you turn that around and you say, it's just like playing Monopoly or cash flow, you probably wouldn't play that game
Millionaire
unless you
or
read
the
the
millionaire
instructions first. Or
or Millionaire Maker. I got a game, and the answer to the game is the book.
I
So I
love
have a
that.
Millionaire Maker book or game too. So we can put that on the kitchen table once they play Monopoly and
We
the
got to
grill.
get that. We got to get that because my boys love Monopoly, and we've had cash flow and cash flow for kids when they were little and doing that. And it's fun. It becomes a game when you know the rules and you have people on your team that are coaches that help you play that game and play it more effectively. But you mentioned something that is very near to my heart. You said a lot of our clients, they are really interested in how to educate their children and do that. And you mentioned something earlier. You talked about, setting up a trust, and we're going to have your kids book on our website, nextlevelincome.com/kids as well, Laurel. But talk a little bit about, how do you help, because this is a huge question with our coaching clients, how do you help educate the next generation? Now, I think one of the things that you mentioned is you
Mhm.
talk about it. You say, hey, here's why you're working for my business. Maybe you make money and pay for your lacrosse fees, instead of me paying and doing that. But what are some things that you do to help educate the next generation? And how does that fit into the corporate life that you all teach?
Well, when you get my book from the link, from your link. Now, if I'm just going to say this, if you go to Amazon, it's going to be a lot cheaper, but you won't get the bonuses. And then I don't know who you are, and you're going to miss the bonuses. And although I love the book, and it's 87 points that you should do between 0 and 20. And even if you're in your 30s and 40s, I'd still get the kids' book, because now that we produced it, and after months of it being out in the market, Chris, it's really a book for everybody, because it's what you
Mhm.
coulda, shoulda, woulda done.
Right.
Because even if you're 40s, I mean, there's still things in that list that you still catch up on, even though
Yeah.
you're, post 20. So, but there's also my favorite thing I ever did for my kids. I started around probably 4. My daughter a little younger because her brother's 7 years older, so she kind of got drug along into that. It's called Never Pay Your Kids an Allowance. And it's probably the greatest section of kids' work I've ever done. I have to put that at the top, because when you pay an allowance, it's like getting a paycheck.
Yeah,
There's
like a
no
salary.
there's no definition. What are you
Yeah.
doing? What are you tasks with? And then different tasks, honestly, as we all know, they create a different amount. And so then you teach the kids to negotiate. So I started when they were young, age appropriate stuff. Like, you have to do stuff just because you live here, right? There's that
Yes.
bundle of stuff, whatever that is, clean your room,
Yeah.
help.
Dishes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I left dishes as something that could go on their task list because I hate
Ooh.
to do them. And my son loves to do them. My daughter loves to empty the dishwasher, not fill the dishwasher. So I let that be a fun task. But washing cars, as the kids grew, they both were tutors. My daughter's become a nanny. She's a dog walker. She house sits. She just started working with Steve and does social media engagement now on my Instagram
Oh,
account.
awesome.
And then
Yeah.
she wrote a new SOP that she sent to Steve about how the other people in engagement are not being as professional, and we need to uplevel my mom's brand. It was really cute.
Wow.
This little email she
And
sent me.
how old is she now, Laurel?
She's 19 now,
That's awesome. Let's
and she's
go, girl
yeah, and
boss.
she's a pilot. She just became a pilot, so that's what she really wants. That's her love, is to become a private pilot and fly everybody else's, big aircraft. And I said, well, first of all, it's going to convince me to go buy one again, because she grew up in a
There you
plane.
go.
Her first
Yeah.
plane ride was 3 months old in our plane. So,
Oh, wow.
when I was running the run with the Millionaire Maker, and 5 New York Times bestsellers within about 7 years of all of them, we
Yeah.
got a plane, because I was on, and my schedule was insane.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and to talk to the kids, take them with you. I can't,
Yeah.
it's just that simple. So to finish up, pay your kids an allowance.
Yeah.
It's very age specific. And then they negotiate. So they come up with, say, 3, 4 tasks. They basically design their paycheck,
Yeah.
as they become more advanced. Is, how much do you want to make this month? Okay, you want to make $500? Well, divide that by 4 weeks, divide that by 5 days. What do you need to make on average a day? And
25
then
bucks.
what tasks am I going to pay somebody else to do that I'd rather pay you to do? Right. So
Yep.
we come up with their lists, and they still do it. They still do it today. My son, he's 26, and is becoming a CPA. He's got 4 tests, and then he'll be a
Oh,
full-fledged CPA.
terrific. Yeah.
Thank God, because what we need is somebody to be the legacy of all this stuff. I think between the two of them, they'll stay pretty close, because it's been a fun ride. Because I've included them. They went to every continent with me. They were on every airplane. If you asked them, my kids, what they did, they said, my mom teaches money, because people don't know about money. So my mom teaches. It was very simple. And then they'd work my events and they'd get paid. But they know mom
Yeah.
was never the money. Because I taught that class. Remember that 3 days to cash that I taught forever? Where
Yeah.
in 3 days I would teach you to make money. So the other part of that, never pay your kids an allowance, is just to start what I call 21st century little lemonade stands. My son had a smoothie business. My daughter had a little art business, and they would go to the events and they'd participate just like all the other adults. And they would sell. If they didn't have something to sell, they'd walk around, they find an adult has something to sell, and they said, I'll be your sales rep for 50%, because that's what I taught them.
Ooh, I love that.
So
That's
if
so
so
good.
this one lady had this
Yeah.
teeth whitening, And so Tristan always loved this that. She's like, well, everybody needs that in the room because they all drink coffee and wine. And so if she's like 8 years old. So she'd run around still teeth whitening and she'd have a goal of making $100 because she wants to go to the gift shop and buy a bunch of candy or whatever she wanted to buy because she knows coming to mom's not going to really work out. So
Right. Yeah.
she would find somebody in the room and she'd only work for like until she got her goal. And then she'd hand back all the product and say, I'm done selling for you now and give me my 50%. And then she'd go shopping or do whatever she wants to with the money.
I
The
love
kids
it.
have
Such a
never,
great lesson.
and even now, like my son wanted to make another 8,000 to fund his IRA, his Roth. And I said, well, I'm going to fund it for you. And he said, well, I still want to make 8,000. He said, what can I do for you? So they're always going to come back home. And then I
Yeah.
give him work inside the company. And now that he's an accountant, I give him pretty advanced work that
Yeah.
I'd rather pay him than somebody else. So I think
Absolutely.
that's a long answer to how, but I just want to give a lot of stories about how you train your kids, you bring them along. There's
Yes.
some people who live big corporate jobs. Their
Yeah.
kids don't even know. They just know their mom and dad go to work. They don't know
Yeah.
what they do. They don't know
Yep.
how many lives they impact. They don't know that they've changed lives. They don't know what they own. Similar to you, I remember my kids sitting in Oklahoma City, which was my millionaire real estate market, painting an apartment. I mean, get a paintbrush, let's go. And they're like,
Yep.
they wouldn't want to go swimming. I said, no, swimming's the end of the day
Yeah.
after you help work and
That's
clean,
right. I
pick up
love it.
tools and behind the cruise so we get out of here faster. So I just bring them along.
And that is so good. It's like learning by osmosis. And
Mhm.
one of my favorite things is I've had both of my boys, either work for us, but come along and sit in on meetings, and
Mhm.
they're listening and kind of hearing these things, coming to different events that I've spoken at. And
Yeah.
I sent my 13-year, well, he's 13 now. He was maybe 11 at the time. And I gave him the agenda and I said, hey, I've got some stuff to do. It was in a hotel. There's a lot of friends of mine, nice, safe, confined area. I said, pick your agenda. What events do you want to go to? He's like, well, I want to learn about vending machines. And he went off on his own, got to network and meet different people and,
Awesome.
learned about that. But then the same thing, it's like, hey, this is kind of the dirty secret of making money or investing. It's like you got to make money somehow. And I love what you said, Laurel. Like I heard you didn't say this, but you taught your children work ethic. You taught them
Absolutely.
that they can be intelligent, they can negotiate, and they have the power to create money by creating that value for other people. And I think that that's so valuable. And
Mhm.
everybody's different. My two boys are different. My wife's got a
Yeah,
different skill set than I do.
very.
But it's so powerful as they do that, and then you get to show them, the laws of money as you teach as well. Um,
I want to share
Laura,
one funny story because this really, I
please,
think,
yeah,
speaks to a lot of you of where you are. And
yeah,
if you're stuck, like if you're stuck at an income level,
yeah,
doing too much versus leading. So my daughter was in
mhm,
fifth grade, and I'll never forget because I would always drive her. She went to a private school way like 30 something minutes across town, like
yeah,
Tahoe. So I drive through the lake and around the lake and take her way out to the school. And one day she was my little texter, right? And Steve probably got a text, with me giving him clues. And I had ski gear on, right? So she
yeah,
looks at me one day when she's texting and she said, Mommy, what do you do? I said, what do you mean, what do I do? He's like, you know what I teach people about money. She said, no, like you have ski gear on. I'm telling all these people what to do in the morning. And then when you
yeah,
come and get me, we drive home, then you're going to have me get a report from them. I said, I'm leading, not doing. She's like, I want to do, I want to be that. So she
yeah,
said, you're going to go ski all day. I said, I know. I said,
yeah,
and other people are going to get it done. I said, but you have to make the money to hire the team too.
yes,
And
yeah,
so there's so many lessons when you just bring them along and talk to them. And
yes,
then logically, it's amazing how little stuff like this week, she got this big pass in this class. She goes to NAU right now. She was in Northern Arizona, and her worst grade is a 94.5. That's her worst
wow,
grade. And she's like, she said, all those times where you said thank you and I appreciate you. She said,
mm,
I'm the only person in class, and she said, two teachers told me that this week, that I'm the only person in class that acknowledges them when they walk in the room and tells them
mhm,
thank you and I appreciate you being my teacher on the way out. And she said, it's amazing how just a little bit of like acknowledgement,
yeah,
changes people. But I never told her
yes.
to do any of that.
She
That's the
figured
part.
it out.
Well,
Yeah,
and there's this osmosis, like you said, that just trickles to the kids when you let them watch you live.
yeah,
So anyway, I think
yeah.
it's fun. I could talk
That
about it.
is that is so good. And Dave Meltzer,
Oh
um,
yeah. I
is,
do.
yeah, he attended a couples retreat that my wife and I were at. And that was my biggest takeaway from him was tell your children every day that you love them, you're proud of them, and you support them. And he said, tell your partner, your spouse, you love them and you appreciate them. And it's so important to hear that, especially in, we're connected, but we're disconnected from each other. And I love that story you told about your daughter picking that up. My son was working in my car wash, and I was bringing him home because he's got his permit, but not his license yet. And he said, "Dad, I was doing the math, and you make a lot of money every month with that car wash." And I said, "Yeah." And he kind of, came up with a figure. I said, "Yeah, that's pretty close." And he goes, I don't think I could work enough in a year to make as much as you do." I go, "That's right." I go, "So let me ask you a question, Ethan." I said, "Do you want to work at the car wash or do you want to own the car wash?" He goes, "Well, I want to own a car wash." I go, "But you got to work at it first so you understand how to do it and you
Yeah.
can work your way up." So he took a totally different view then of being an
Beautiful.
employee. And I think if you're listening and you're early on in your career, what I want to say is that act like you're the owner. Act like, ask
Mhm.
yourself, what would I
Right.
do if I was the manager?
Yep.
And try to solve the problems and do that. And then you can have that ownership. Laurel, we're coming up on the end
I
of our time. We
know.
could we could talk
Forever.
all day on this, but you've got some phenomenal resources. I was actually watching your
Mm.
short film here before our podcast on your website, askloral.com/podcast, which we'll have in the link.
Mhm.
But you've got so many books, so many resources,
Yep.
your community that you have. What's the best way for our audience to engage with that?
Well, we're going to give you some free stuff. So we're going to give you this is brand new, came out for our 25th year anniversary. So we re-upped to the Millionaire Maker, has 40 additional, had originally 7 stories, and we added 40 testimonial
Wow.
short stories of people in just different industries and how they're doing their life, and just give you more breadth. So this is our version 2. And then I actually teach what's called the Millionaire Intensive, which is how do you live this corporate life. So the first 2 hours are vital. Then we move to how do you run an operating company and really make the money that you need. And then we move into a marketplace where you actually learn to sell. So we're doing one of
Love
those.
it.
So we're going to get 2 tickets to that. And go if you have any questions, just go to askloral.com, ASKLORAL. Go to askloral.com, ask a question, make a request. And that runs 24/7 with answers regularly coming out to you.
Laurel, this has been awesome. I love your energy, everything you've taught.
Yeah.
You've helped my wife and I so much over the years
Right.
as we've grown here. And next time I'm out in Tahoe, I look forward to connecting with you as well. But if you're listening here today, please go to AskLaurel.com. Take advantage of the offer that Laurel's providing today. And Laurel, thank you again for providing all your wisdom to our audience.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.